So you want to go fishing on a new pond that you haven't been to before and you don't know what bait you want to throw? Well, I'll tell you what I would do. I've been doing it for over 30 years and this is my go-to game plan. I usually bring 3 rods and these are the first 3 things that I'll tie on, especially in the warmer months when the lily pads and the grass start to take over the pond. The first thing would be a frog, and not a full-size frog. I'm talking about a downsized one, and I always go with a Jackal Kaera. It's the best little frog I've ever used and it gets bit like crazy. You just throw this in any of the visible cover, such as the laydowns, the lily pads, grass, whatever's in your water. You can just throw it around and walk the dog around it. What's up, kitty? I like this little frog so much, I got multiple. And this guy right here, I had to retire this one. He got bit so many times. I don't know if you can see all the scratches around it or not, but this thing sinks now. It takes water every time I use it. So I had to retire him. And when you have a bait that can do something like that, get bit so many times, you have to literally stop using it. That's the kind of bait you want to bring to a new pond, because that's called confidence. Next up would be the jig, and I just went fishing. I still have it tied it on. And it's this one right here. I'll always use this setup with a jig. Sometimes I'll put a craw trailer on it, but mostly the Rage Menace. And I'll have it turned sideways. And that's my perfect little bluegill imitation. But how I fish that in a new pond would be, I can let it hit bottom and just see what the bottom's all about. If it's grassy, if it's rocky, or what. And if it's super mucked up in grass and whatever, every cast after that, I'm not going to let it hit bottom as long as I can help it, and I'm just going to be hopping it like this all the way back to the boat around every piece of cover. And to me, that just imitates a bluegill that's all like stunned or fleeing or something, and it just gets smashed when I do that. If it's a hard rocky bottom, then I can let it hit bottom and I'll hop it off the bottom, but I would say I do that almost never, to be honest. I'm always doing my hopping method. But if that's something you like to do with a jig, is the bottom contact, then you gotta see if it's a hard bottom first. And also, a jig is great for a follow-up to the frog. If you're getting blow-ups on the frog that just seem to be missing, or you set the hook and the frog just comes flying back at your face, but you know that the fish didn't feel any of that bait when you set the hook, then you just throw that jig right where that blow-up happened, and a lot of the times you can get that same fish to bite the jig. Now the third bait that I'll bring is a fluke. And I like the X-Zone Whiplash Shad and the good old Zoom Super Fluke. And with those, the way I fish them is I'll either rig it so it dances around the surface or just under the surface, and I'm just throwing it around the sparse vegetation and the weed edges in between lily pads. Basically where you throw a jig, but just not into the super thick stuff. But you can also get away with that sometimes. I'm just not really throwing it into the junk. It's more like like I said, like the sparse stuff. Now those are just the 3 that I start with before I ever even see the pond. And when I get there, I'm bringing a whole tackle box full of stuff anyway. So like when I get there and I figure out what the pond actually has to offer as far as the cover and how much cover there is or how little cover there is, that's when I can switch to something else, like say a spinner bait or a chatter bait. And if there's like a lot of open lanes and the grass isn't coming all the way up to the surface in a lot of spots, then I can even throw on a crankbait. And it all depends on how deep it is too, for how deep of a crankbait I'll use. It's just all when I show up there and I start going around on the pond. If I'm not fishing from the bank, then I just let it tell me what I can throw, and then after that the fish tell me what they want. If this gave you an idea of what to throw when you're fishing a new pond, or just helped to simplify your approach, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. There's more tips coming, and thank you for watching.